Do it live.
Yeah, we'll do it live.
And we are live right now. Finally, folks.
We are live
We are
right
live.
now.
Alive,
Woo!
actually. Kind of, maybe.
In
Kind
front
of.
of the millions or
In front of the
dozens
millions
of
or
people.
dozens. Yeah, just only a few people tonight, obviously, because we're like 2 hours late. Not even like on time. In fact, we're actually days late, don't you think? Because wasn't this like supposed to
Yeah.
be on Sunday? But then, like yesterday? But, I
We
mean, the
had another
doctors,
doctor's
right?
appointment.
It's all about the doctors, man. It's all about the doctors.
But it's
I mean,
so good. I won't be seeing another doctor for a while. It's just a precautionary checkup because they thought I might have had a medical condition which I don't have, but I need to I need to comply with their tests so that it's a long story. It's nothing bad.
indeed. It is a long story. Nothing bad. Fair enough. So we got our question and answer thing tonight. Patreon Platinums first, Patreon Silver, Super Chats, Discord, YouTube. One question for Platinums, one question for Silvers for first hour. Second hour, we do another round of questions for the Patreon ones. Otherwise, Super Chats are all the way through. If you give us a Super Chat, then we will answer your question. Then we go through Discord questions, and at the very end, we do some YouTube questions. So if you have questions on YouTube, please hold
Yep.
those and whatnot. I think that's basically about it at this point for that.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your much needed patience. I really appreciate it. Sometimes,
Yeah.
I'm amazed as to how patient this audience is with us, given how difficult us being on time ever is a thing. There's a lot of reasons for it, like day jobs and doctor's appointments, and the fact that I'm
Right.
in a salary position for my day job and not hourly. So it complicates things, and I have to travel often. So, and we're human, but I recognize that this audience allows us to be human, which I very much appreciate and
Yeah.
am very grateful for. So,
I feel I feel really bad because I'm pretty sure there's a song about it, but I don't know
yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Oh, we got
I don't know.
prehistoric tuna. Prehistoric tuna is made their entrance. So,
Oops,
all right,
driving.
we could definitely do the stream now, thanks to prehistoric tuna's presence. So,
Welcome, prehistoric tuna.
yep, glad to have prehistoric tuna back. Other way, jabba jabba do. Let's get on with the first question.
All right, now the first question we will be reading from the Platinum Q&A. So people who have a Platinum subscription to our Patreon, and the first question comes from we're doing two for Platinum, right? Two for Platinum. Why is the ENTP the most introverted extrovert when the ENTJ has two behind-the-scenes sites as a type?
We
As
actually
sides of the
answered that
mind?
question last time,
We did.
so let's move on to the
Let
next
me
one.
delete that really quickly.
Thank you.
Regarding virtue and vice, I thought it was familiar. Regarding virtue and vice, how close would two types who share all the letters but the JP dichotomy be?
The two types. Say again.
So it's saying how would two types who share all letters but the JP dichotomy be? So what it's saying is INTJ, INTP, how close are their virtue and vice? And realistically, I can sort of answer that in the sense that
Yeah, go ahead and answer that one
sometimes
for sure.
when it comes to so obviously if it's an INTJ and an INTP, for example, the shadow of the INTJ is an ENTP, which is kind of similar to an INTP.
Right.
And within that, the fear of an I don't know. This is something I've noticed, but I think it's that the fear of an INTJ is the virtues and vices of the ENTP or their shadow. So we can actually see this correlation between the two. So that the thing that they're worried about is the virtue and vices of their shadow type, or perhaps even, you know, not necessarily the shadow, but the introverted version of their shadow. So, and the INTP or the INTJ. What would you say to that, Chase?
Well, the thing is that from a virtue and vice standpoint, you have to understand the virtue and vices are each attached to each of the different types, right? So if you have the four sides of the mind, there's a virtue and vice attached to each of those four sides, and those are actually indicative within the types themselves. So INTP and INTJ would be completely different from that standpoint. However, if you look at it in terms of NTJs, versus INTPs, right? Okay, that's a little bit different, right? Because if you look at NTJs versus NTPs, because NTJs can still share some of the same virtue and vices in primary and secondary. So also can ETJs or ITPs. You see what I'm saying? So there's still a lot of different dimensions the virtues and vices can attach. Look at it this way, folks. Everyone has every virtue. Everyone has every vice. The difference is what is the priority of them, right? So when we talk about primary versus secondary, the most primary virtues and the most primary vices are attached specifically to the types, and that's what we talk about in season 7. So that's how I'd answer that question. What's next?
Let me just finish on that. There's
Sure.
a little bit of a caveat, and it's not only priorities, because some types are naturally better at certain virtues and vices, which they don't necessarily need to prioritize because they're already good at them.
Yep.
But let's move forward anyway.
Yep.
Do you have any tips for typing people who rely on or consistently use drugs? For example, my buddy who is always taking caffeine, smoking, and on antidepressants.
Get off mind-altering substances immediately. I am so tired, especially of INFJs, and they're like, "But I need this, man, in order to stay productive." And then they're not. Like, you actually statistically write it down about how like they need it in order to stay mellow or whatever, to like actually be productive or to focus. Or I don't know how many times, for example, Jeb, a particular ESTP in our life, the one I'm talking about.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, in fact, 2 ESTPs from the same place. You know what I'm saying? 2 of them, all this issue, except one of them has an extreme fascination with caffeine pills for some reason. And yeah, I don't appreciate that at all. So yeah, you know who you are, buddy, and I'm calling you out. Like, seriously, don't do that. Right?
Does this person know they're an ESTP?
Yes, they do know they're an ESTP.
Oh, I thought you were talking about host Eric.
Oh. Nice one, Jab. Nice. No, I was talking about a certain other Discord server that we're part of. Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Okay. I know which one you're talking about.
Okay. Well, actually, it applies to both ESTPs on that server, technically. Oh, yeah. Thank you, STP NFJs, with your incessant need for mind-altering substances more than any other type. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well, I think this person wasn't saying that they necessarily use them, but he's saying, is there a way to type people who are taking mind-altering substances?
Yeah.
Well, realistically, I think, we've briefly discussed in the past on like the effect of stimulants and the effect of depressants and whatnot, and how stimulants push you into your subconscious and depressants push you into your shadow. So realistically, if you can gauge what they're on, and perhaps when they're taking less and when they're taking more, because if someone's off their tits on a stimulant, there's a good chance that they'll be in their subconscious. So
Indeed.
you can just like absolutely backtrack and be like, okay, this person has literally drunk 6 coffees in the past 2 minutes. Therefore, there's a good chance they're in their subconscious right now. So I'm going to type them right now. And on the assumption that they're in their subconscious, the type you get, you go, oh, that's their subconscious. Therefore, they are a...
Well, it's either that or just take a bong hit in front of the curtain. All right, what's next, Jab?
A dirty rag. All right, next question from Aiden Wojnies, I believe. Aiden W. Are any types more likely to have an easier time entering a flow state? Question mark. Because this is totally biased. My NJ friends and myself seem to be almost in an almost constant state of flow. Creativity, setting and achieving goals, finding opportunities.
It depends how you define flow.
Okay. But what this sounds like is he's got a bunch of finisher friends who may either have some degree of maturity at starting, or they have projects started for them, and then because it's an already started project and them being finishers, they're just like skating right through it.
Yeah, but that flow goes away when those projects are missing or are not started, right? And they have to put a lot of energy into actually getting it up off the ground, and there's a lack of flow there.
Right. I mean, if you could give us some more context to that, that sounds like what it is. Maybe there's some maturity, or maybe within your group of NJs, there might be some NPs. An NP, an NFP, or an ENP. They're the starters of the intuitives. So maybe you've got some EMPs in your group that you're not aware of who are constantly initiating the starting of projects, which is actually helping push those projects through to completion because your NJ friends take them over and then finished. Amazing job.
Finished.
Let's see. Mr. Aiden is writing something right now. So let's see what he says. Get some more context.
Aiden is the man.
Yeah, he's one of our best patrons.
Well,
What
not
did
only
happen
that,
to
like
Ariane?
his contributions on the conference is pretty fun too, to be honest. Which I still have to upload. I forgot about that. Sorry, guys.
Not
I'll
just
get that uploaded
INJs,
soon.
ENJs. Right, but do you have any like ENP friends in the mix that will?
Jerry Dwell, Bruce Lee's type. I maintain he's actually an ENTP or an ISFJ. I have yet to verify that, but it's between those two. So, all right. So next question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's answered for the most part.
Yeah, it pretty much is. I mean, like ENPs or even NPs can get into a flow state as well, but it's a little bit different. It's more of like going with the flow and just being in that consistent state at all times instead of like actually being able to get into that trance, like, I'm going to get something done approach. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I think the dynamic of the scenario is the NJs are, being finishers, so they're driven to end something, and then at the same time, I believe the ENPs would be, sorry, the ENJs, so like the ENTJ, they're a bit more results orientated, so they're all about results, even though they're not finishers. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's why ENTJs make the best people who run businesses.
Yeah. All right. What's the next question?
Next question is from him again, but we're allowing two for the Patreons. Could being tired or depressed or pumped up without drugs cause them to enter the shadow of their subconscious? Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
It's usually the unconscious. Absolutely, because the mind is trying to get you to go to sleep. So it's trying to take you deep in your mind.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I think those are all answered. We can go to the regular patrons. Oh, thank you all for your contributions, especially the platinums. We love you so much. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Sell out, coin slot. Haha. All right. Let's see what we got here. Have you read the completion process and do you have an opinion on it? I have not. What about you, Chase?
And no.
No opinion on it. If cognitive functions and sides of the mind are optimistic, pessimistic, isn't it true that there's no such thing as an optimistic or pessimistic person and they're just using functions that are optimistic or pessimistic or stuck in a certain side of their mind? Sort of.
Yes.
People can overdevelop certain functions.
The answer to that question is yes. Absolutely. There's no such thing.
Right, but what I'm saying is from a neutral point of view, people can overdevelop positive functions and appear positive.
Or they're immature or mature. So yes. Again, yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a really good question. Wow, I'm feeling super movement right now.
Yeah,
like just
keep
crushing
it up.
Is there a function that affects your ability to fall asleep? If so, what can one do to fall asleep quicker? SI Demon.
It's your S functions. It's SE and SI. SE users need to be around people who are not afraid or insecure or uncomfortable so that they can be comfortable themselves. And SI users just need to seek to make themselves comfortable or get assistance from their SE users to be comfortable themselves. And that is how they can go and be asleep. But it's mostly focused on S functions.
Right. Like, I mean, I can give some feedback on this. It's a common trend for people with like SI Demon or SI Trickster to be up at obscure hours of the night. So there's plenty of people who've seen me up at 3 a.m. in the morning, my time. And the reason is because SI Demon doesn't really remember the hardships that I've gone through by being sleep deprived. So, I've been sleep deprived many times in my life, and I can objectively say it sucked. But I don't think about that before going to bed, thinking, oh, I should go to bed on time because it really sucked what I physically had to go through. Which means I can constantly be sleep deprived and lose, lots of sleep. And I believe that's a common issue with SI Demons and SI Tricksters.
Indeed. What's next?
So Next question is, so I've noticed that TEFI users tend to value respect and demand respect a lot. Is that accurate, or does it not matter what functions you have?
Everyone demands respect. Doesn't matter what your function
Okay.
is,
I think
and
what you're noticing
and
is TEFI users.
it's usually has something to do with listening to people. So TI
Mhm.
users need to be listened to. TE users need to be able to have the opportunity to provide input, and the TI users need to be able to
Right.
respond. And if that interaction is not taking place, then there is no respect that is able to take place.
All right. What I will say though is what I think you're seeing here is TEFI users are usually about status and credentials. So you are probably seeing their demand for status and credentials and their desire to get credentials for their positions as a way of them overvaluing respect compared to other types. But that's not necessarily true. That's just the way in which they go out to get respect because they value those things as something to be respectful.
Right. All right. We see
Um,
that Colin Zylan Harris gave us a super chat. We'll get to that in a few minutes. And we definitely do have an answer for you. So thank you for your patience. What's the next question, Mr. Jeb? Let's kind of blow through
yeah,
these a little bit more.
we just need to get through the patients. What would be the best career choices for INTJs? Doctor, engineer.
Not a doctor, but they would actually be really
Not a
good at
doctor.
being a doctor. I wouldn't know. I mean, doctors are better off with STJs being doctors, even though I completely dislike the idea of an STJ doctor. But technically, statistically, the education system is built for STJs to take advantage of being a lawyer or a doctor or a nurse or anything like that, and it benefits them the most. Engineering would be ideal for INTJs. Anything that has to do with development, innovation, creating processes, new business, algorithms to the point. Anything with really heavy extroverted thinking, database administration, database production, anything that has to do with like data sets over long periods of time. You could do
Right.
shorter periods of time, it's fine, but that's a little bit more logical than it is rational because you just want to be very broad and very general, etc. So, and that's where that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my argument for doctor is the fact that every time I've seen a doctor, I've thought, wow, I would be a way better doctor than them. But perhaps that's not fair considering, I have a fair few INTPs or INFJ doctors. So let's go to the next question. Does how does intemperament pairing, i.e., NT affect the quality of a long distance relationship?
NT relationships over long distance do not work. I don't recommend it at all. NTJ plus
Mhm.
NTP relationships long distance, no. Do not
No.
recommend. Nope. Don't do it. Especially because you have love languages like quality time and physical touch that are usually at the top for most
Mhm.
of those kinds of relationships. Good luck because the
Mhm.
NTP, for example, will feel neglected over time and it will lead to the
Absolutely.
relationship falling apart. Good luck. No, thank you.
Well, that's
Don't
the
even waste
thing.
your time.
One of the core needs of an NTP is the desire to be wanted,
Yeah,
and
to be
that's why they need a
wanted,
strong NI user.
they need a strong NI
And
user.
I and there's only so much someone can want them through a long distance relationship. Now, of course, I wouldn't say it's impossible. But if you're not making an effort to try and go see them as soon as possible, you're doing it wrong.
Yep.
If you're in an NTP NTG relationship, you should be trying your hardest to no longer make it a long
Good
distance
luck.
relationship.
Good luck convincing the NTJ to be comfortable enough for the NTP to come to them quickly as well. Good luck. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
So again, there's no point in trying. Like, don't even bother. I mean,
Right.
even if you were going to do like NTP NFJ relationships, don't even like. Honestly, I don't recommend it either. I really don't. There are times in my life when I've been open to at least trying, but it's just not a good idea. And honestly, I'm no. Because like an NTP's needs over long distance will not be met. Sorry. I mean the NTJ or the NFJ, the NJ could potentially meet that on their end, but or their needs can be met from the ENTP, but it's not the other way around. It's not going to work. It's just not.
Mhm.
So just don't do it.
Well,
Like
I
stop.
would say if you currently are in this scenario, if you aren't doing everything in your power to make this no longer a long distance relationship, the relationship's going to fail because
Yeah.
the NTP wants to be wanted, and they see you not doing everything in your power to try and make you two become closer as a sign of you not wanting them. So it's a self.
Yeah. So again, NT-NT relationships do work if it's NTJs plus NTPs. They do not
Right.
work long distance. Not unless they already have a prehistory of an established relationship over time where they weren't long
Mm-hmm.
distance, then their relationship can suffer a hit of long distance for a limited amount of time. Otherwise, no.
Mm-hmm.
Don't like let um, let not man separate what God has joined. That kind of approach. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like
Yeah.
seriously, don't do that.
Next question. What are the top 2 love language for each of the intuitive types? Well, that sounds like a long answer.
We don't know. We actually had this discussion in our Ruby and Platinum conference this last Saturday. And it is actually one of our main discussion topics that we're having in the 2-hour conference that we do once a month. We also have Mr. Matty Bojangles from the audience, who's actually specifically putting some work into this for us, which I really appreciate him for doing. And yes, this is an ongoing discussion to the point where we've actually potentially identified some additional love languages that are not even included in the 5 love languages. And also how there's introverted versus extroverted love languages. This is something that we are looking at, and we'll get back to the audience when we have a definitive answer. But for now, it's within the confines of the think tank, and that's where it will remain. And I'm afraid that's where we'll have to keep that question answered for now. What's next?
Right. Next question is, how did Jung come up with the cognitive senses? It's like he pulled directly from the collective unconscious.
He had a lot of research. He also did some experimentation, and he just started comparing people, and just basically it was just many, many, many hours of people watching, and he just wrote down some of his conclusions, and then he realized that there was a pattern over time with his expert intuition parent. It's literally like that, and then he started doing research beyond that to corroborate, if not prove, his theories. For example, he looked at shared symbology between cultures, like, for example, the Maya and the Egyptians, who supposedly built pyramids around the same time as each other, yet the two cultures had no contact with each other, and just kind of how that works, basically. So, those shared symbology among cultures that never had contact with each other whatsoever just shows that the collective unconscious has some innate psychic connection to all the minds on the earth. And he was able to utilize that as his first point of origin in determining cognitive senses, also known as expert intuition. And then he was able to logically, using logic, because he found the first starting point to create the rest. Which is funny because expert intuition is also the cognitive function attached to water. It is also the cognitive function attached to chaos. Chaos always comes before order. Order is brought to chaos. In as much as water always precedes everything else. In the same way, in Genesis chapter 1, it says, and God's spirit was hovering over the waters of the formless world. You see what I'm saying? The chaos, right? The chaos in the water, right? The water, the chaos, expert intuition. And that was his starting point, the collective unconscious. And then he was able to use logic to determine the rest of the cognitive senses as a result of his observations of people and additional research that he put into each individual of the 8 cognitive senses for him to create his theory. And that is the process that he followed. So, what's next?
Next question
Oh,
is,
and
what are the best
Jung is an
types of books?
INTP. Jung is an INTP. Next.
We typed him in one of the videos, didn't
We
we? I
did type
found
in
some
one of
old
the videos. Yeah.
videos.
Old interviews of him.
So you can go check that out for yourself. It should be in one of the videos. Next question is, what are the best books for INFP males? No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Nor Mr. Nice Guy. Eat to Live by Joel Furman. Also, every single thing that Robert Greene ever wrote.
Right.
I also recommend they read a book called The Mystery Method. It's a pickup artist book, but it teaches the process known as anchoring, which is very important for INFPs to learn in general. It has nothing to do with them being a pickup artist. It has everything to do with how they can utilize psychometry to attach memories to physical objects so that they can have better relationships with SE users. It's very, very important that they learn how to do that.
Would you recommend any book specifically for an INFP male, though? Like, if you're like, an INFP male absolutely has to read this book that all the other types don't need to read.
No, we're Mr. Nice Guy, hands down. Hands down.
Fair enough. Next question. So lately I've been typing along with you on the streams, and it feels like I'm getting almost every single one wrong. It's like you hear TIFE, I hear TEFI. You hear direct, I hear informative. I've watched every single one of your videos some multiple times, so I'm left confused. What is exactly the learning curve on this material, and how subjective do you think it truly is? All right. I'm going to give you a little crash lesson on direct versus informative. Okay. So, informative is when somebody conveys information without saying it. So, for example, informative would be... So, an informative threat would be someone saying to someone, it would be a shame if you died tomorrow by a gunshot bullet to the head. That would be an absolute shame. You know, that would be an informative threat. A direct threat would be, I'm going to shoot you in the face.
True that.
So, so with informative types, what you can often see is they will say things which don't explicitly spell out their intentions. So an informative person would say something along the lines of, I don't know, oh wow, Chase, you have a very interesting hairstyle today.
Thank you.
Chase could have like a pink mohawk or something that looks absolutely ridiculous. And within the context of that, the informative person is saying that he has a shit hairstyle.
Yeah, today I just have a carpet. That's what I got. I got a carpet flap right
Sorry,
over my face.
I wasn't referring to your hairstyle. I actually haven't really looked at you on the stream. However,
that's
if Chase had like a...
That's probably ideal, to be honest, that you haven't. Because, yeah. I kind of look like a homeless mountain man that is in need of a,
Whereas a direct person would say, wow, your hair is really shit today.
Thank you.
So that's the difference between direct and informative. With TIFE and TEFI, I think you should probably watch the videos on the cognitive functions where each of them are explained. I think they're one of your earlier videos. So watch the TE one, the TI one, the FE, the FI.
All right.
I mean, TI is logic. TE
so
is...
I'm going to answer the rest of the question.
Right.
So most people are defining the cognitive functions in one way, and usually you just have to think that the way that C.S. Joseph does it is the complete opposite. They have the functions backwards. That's all there is to it.
Right.
The functions that they would explain as introverted intuition is actually extroverted intuition, and it's backwards, and it's inaccurate. And we're the only people out there who are accurate. Sorry, but that's a fact. So, test us on this. Like, seriously, go out there, assume that we're correct, and test it out in the field, and then get back to us. So, next question, good sir.
Next question. I think that's it for people who haven't already asked a question. Oh, sorry. This guy's actually a follow-up regarding the sleep question, so let's probably just get this one out of the way for now. Okay. Shooting back to the sleep question, would SI child have trouble falling asleep? How can I use my SI child to sleep better?
No, it really wouldn't have trouble to fall asleep as long as it's comfortable. As long as its circadian rhythm is not crap.
I would say children need to be disciplined. So you need to discipline yourself to go to bed at a certain time every night. And
or hopefully your parents disciplined you and made you go to bed on a certain bedtime so that it was with you for the rest of your...
Right. To develop like a routine. I mean, you can't go wrong with developing a routine. I think that'd be very helpful for you because routine is a big component of maturity. Let's go on to the questions from the super chat. I'm sorry we're getting to you so late. I believe the first question was the tattoo question. Which types are more likely to get a tattoo, Chase?
I'm actually not sure about types that are most likely to get tattoos are NJs and SPs. But if you want to drill down further, there are a few NFPs out there, INFPs and ENFPs who do when they are subconscious focused. We've noticed this. NTPs don't typically get tattoos ever. It's very rare that NTPs do. And in fact, it often makes their NTJs uncomfortable when NTPs do. NTJs don't usually get tattoos, but they can, especially ENTJ men. They do. Gender plays a little bit of a role in it as well. We've noticed. However, predominantly SE heroes and SE child seems to be the most common people who have tattoos. The most common, with second most common being SE parents, or after that, basically. So yeah, that's where it goes for on that. What's the next question?
I guess that would make sense from a cognitive function standpoint, because it's like SE wants to overwhelm someone with an experience, so they dress up their body even on their skin, so to speak. So yeah, okay. The next question is from Sarah Robin. Oh, she donated twice. Do you think SE users can see cognitive functions in action because of how SE is in the moment and understanding what people are doing around them?
Through technically SE or SI users can, but through visual typing, absolutely SE users can.
Wow. So SE users are better at visually typing by seeing and experiencing the signs
That's
of which
correct.
people would give out, which would convey
I
certain
don't
cognitive
talk about visual typing much. We'll probably bring my my mentor on the stream, my ESTP mentor, who will talk about visual typing, because he's probably the one person that I know that has the most experience and the most expertise in visual typing than anyone I've ever met. He's extremely good. I can't believe how good he is at it. He just looks at somebody and instantly knows. It's so weird. And then I go through the type grid process with that same person and interacting them, and sure enough, he's right. And it's like, wow, I wish I had that ability. But then again, he's got SE Hero too. So
Right. Well, I mean, I've actually touched on visual typing a little bit, and usually it's not more than a hint, because I've noticed that sometimes I'm like trying to type someone and I'm like, there's no way you're that type, and then it's like they are that type. Especially when it comes to my own type, I cannot visually type INTJs because I'm projecting my own biases on them. Like, oh, I wouldn't wear that, or oh, I wouldn't wear my makeup that way, or oh, I wouldn't wear that hat. And yes, I turn into a gay person when I'm visually typing. Oh. Let's go on to the next question. Shout out for Tom Day. Don't know who
I
that
would like
is,
to
but...
clarify for the audience my tattoo comments, my tattoo answer. Again, it's entirely subjective. There's just way too many factors in place there for me to really give an accurate statement. However,
Right.
statistically speaking, and based on the anecdotal evidence that I have, it's mostly SE Heroes and SE Child, the optimistic SE, that has the most tattoos per capita compared to everyone else, based on
Right.
what we know. So that's it. Outside of that, why would people put tattoos? It has someone, as someone pointed out in the audience, it's SE users storing memories on their body, or it's SI users using expert intuition to have symbols of meaning on their body. And that's basically the approach that they would take. So,
Right. Well, I think you're right in saying that it's just like, it's not a rule, but it's just like from a distribution probability standpoint, certain types are more likely. That doesn't mean that some INTJ tattoo
I
are
don't know how many
necessarily going
times I've
to.
been in relationships with NJs where they all told me that it was a deal breaker for them in a relationship if I had tattoos. So, yep.
Well, I'll admit, I personally, as an INTJ, don't like tattoos. But if someone had a small tattoo, I'd be like, eh. But I don't think I could deal with a woman who had like a full body tattoo or something, like literally was inked from head to toe. I'd be like, ew, that's a bit too much.
Yeah, that's not exactly an experience I'm willing to have either. So,
Fair enough.
please continue.
So that's the super chat so far.
All right.
Let's go
Discord
into
questions.
some Discord questions. Let's see what we've got. I swear we need to reorganize the server. I gotta like bounce up and down between. I gotta literally scroll halfway up the screen. Questions for CS Joseph. Here we go. Why do we act completely differently at text, and how does it interfere in typing anyone by text or directly? Thanks.
Due to the social moratorium provided by text conversation, if you need to learn more about that, watch the season 15 episodes, how social moratoriums impact the interaction styles.
Boom. As an INTP, how can I cultivate a good relationship with my grandmother, who is an ISFJ?
Um, Tell her what you want, make her feel chosen, give her a good experience, make her as comfortable as possible. Pretend to have feelings around her and pretend that you value her and say that I value
Oh
you
God,
and I feel
sounds
really
terrible.
good about
Pretend that you
this.
value.
Yeah, just like pretend that you value things, and then also listen to her even if you think she's not wrong or not correct. Listen to her anyway. And in
I'm not
some
gonna lie.
cases, yeah.
That sounds terrible. Pretend that you love your grandmother and you care, and pretend that
No,
you
no,
care
no.
about her. It's
Pretend that you feel good about it. Pretend you value what she has to say.
like,
Like pretend. Like that's all you can do.
Mhm. All right. Next question. Do you think it's possible that an ENFJ is informative? I'm a male INTP in a relationship with a female ENFJ, and it seems that almost everything, excuse me, everything she says has some sort of underlying meaning or intention behind it. I know you make it clear to differentiate primary versus secondary, but is there anything about a female ENFJ that I could be mistaking for a primarily informative interaction style?
Well, you
Ooh.
have to see what motivates her. What motivates her is value judgments, and you're not making any value judgments, and that's why you always think that there's strings attached to everything she's saying because she's speaking in terms of value judgments and not necessarily true false judgments all the time. And
That's
when
a
she
good point.
speaks in true false, when she actually does speak in true false, what ends up happening is that you disagree with her sense of true false anyway, and you don't even listen to her. And then that causes her demon to come out, which makes your relationship even worse. Not ideal. Don't do it.
Ooh, we got another super chat. What is a healthy way for an INTJ to develop their demon function?
In order to
What?
develop your demon function, you have to develop your entire subconscious and your entire unconscious first. And once you have fully developed them and reached maximum maturity or efficacy with each of those sides of the mind, then and only then can you begin to develop your demon function appropriately.
Well, I was going to chime into that, and I'd say don't make the mistake of thinking that through your SI demon that you have to like take it head on and like not forgive people who are worthy of a door slam, because that's gonna take it from me. That's gonna fuck you up if you don't door slam people who need to be door slammed.
Yep.
Chase can confirm.
Thanks.
Oh, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about things I've spoken to you about and people who I should have door slammed who you're like, told you so. How can TE Inferior be so prolific? What is the role of FI Hero?
Say again. All right. How can
Sorry.
TE Inferior be so prolific at gathering reference points and synthesizing info? Is that the question?
Prolific. And he gives the example of Robert Greene.
Because they're aspiring. Their TE inferior becomes TE aspirational, and they are aspiring in the moment, or not in the moment, with their research, and they're aspiring to collect the highest amount of reference points, the highest amount of research, which makes them super powerful academics. This is why I maintain INFPs could technically be the most intelligent of all the types, out of everybody,
Right.
even beyond TI hero.
I mean, you can see the aspirational right here with me. Like, I'm an INTJ with SE inferior, yet here I am, like acting like a clown, telling jokes, like. Blah, blah, blah.
Yep,
Like,
telling us all about Alex Jones and certain people that like to spear
Alex
things
Jones.
and sniff petrol. So
Right.
yeah, yeah.
And Frog's gay, whatever.
That's what we
I'm
do
Alex
here.
Jones. I've read the documents.
He's read the documents, folks. He's read the documents.
I've read the documents from Chase himself that I wrote for him, and I can tell you that the U.S. government has a secret order of assassins which go out every night in ninja outfits and pour
Ninja
outfits by to turn the frogs gay.
Yeah.
I've read the documents.
You've read the documents. All right, next question.
I'm just waiting to watch this clip on the Alex Jones show. Listen here, folks. The CIA is sending out secret information through the CS Joseph channel. Right now, we're hearing about
Wait,
ninjas who are
wait.
pouring atrazine.
Glenn Beck literally said that about Goon Swarm when Sean Smith died.
What?
I'm not even kidding. Glenn Beck
What did he
literally
say about
said that.
Goonsong?
He said that Goon Swarm in EVE Online was a CIA front. Literally said that. Yeah.
Turn the frogs gay in their ninja outfits.
All right, next question.
All right, what's the next question? What are good SE martial arts? So martial arts for SE users.
Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and Muay Thai.
BJJ. You know, the first time someone told me Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu by BJJ, I thought like they wrote BJ wrong and accidentally put a second J.
Maybe
I was
it's
like,
two
what?
jobs for the price of one.
Yeah, exactly. Blow
All
job
right.
jobs.
Yep. Next.
All right. Funny how ENTJs have a fear of being abandoned and INTPs have a fear of rejection, which stems from their fear of failure. It makes sense how they have the highest compatibility. Interesting. INTPs are insanely loyal to a fault, to where even if a person treats an INTP like shit, they still don't abandon them. I.e., your INTP friend who was married to an ESFJ Chinese lady story, and also from personal experience, it makes a lot of sense. Can you explain how ENTJs quell the fear of rejection in INTPs? And even if an INTP knows a person's intention, one still has the fear of rejection. I'm guessing it's SE child and SI child feels and ENTJ. Sorry, this is grammatically incorrect. So I think what he's trying to say is SE child is just like SE child is just like SI child and fulfills ENTJs and helps them overcome their fear of abandonment. Can you explain and give an example of how ENTJs are equipped for INTP's fear of rejection? I mean, I could give it. I think I could answer this question.
Go for it.
So tell me, Chase. So with ENTJs, they're constantly at the gym. They're constantly working on themselves. They're constantly, I mean, I think statistically they're the highest earners. They are basically the type of people which everyone aspires to be. So they have a lot of flexibility in who they can date. And on that note, INTPs, from a physical perspective, I mean, I personally find them to be quite cute, but I don't think that an ENTJ is worried. So an ENTJ who hits the gym multiple times a week is at the top of his field, earning a crap ton of money, is good looking, is going to be worried about rejection from an INTP who is absolutely brilliant. However, on the surface, it's like a girl in a Star Wars shirt who isn't necessarily wearing any makeup. Now, that's not to say that the INTP girl isn't brilliant, but I think her physical experience, her physical appearance might give the ENTJ so much confidence that he might think, from a book cover point of view, there's no reason as to why he could get rejected. I think I just made a dick of myself, though.
All right. Well, here's the thing, though. So fear of rejection on the INTP part. The thing about NTJs is that even if the NTP makes mistakes, they have the choice. Are they going to let go of the NTP or are they going to hold on? Right? That's the difference. Because when the NTP ultimately screws up, because everyone screws up, including the NTJs do it by jumping to conclusions for the wrong things. NTPs do it just by, just because they get too stuck in their habits or their comfort zone, or they stagnate and whatever. And there's all these different approaches to failure in friendships, relationships, whatever. But at the end of the day, is the NTJ going to, like, when the NTP makes a mistake and they're like guilty about it, is the NTJ going to let go of them, or is the NTJ going to stick it out? Like, do they actually want to stay, even though the NTP knows that, well, I mean, if they don't want to stay, I'd understand. It's the same thing, right? Or it's also why NTJs do loyalty checks. So, which is not highly recommended either, unless they absolutely have to do that. The thing is, what they perceive is whether or not they absolutely have to do that is not necessarily true. Just because they perceive it that way, just because they feel that way, doesn't make it true either. So they have to verify. So, but when they're alone, they don't have anyone with which to verify, so they have to be willing to pick their battles. So it basically goes on both sides. Rejection is available for everybody, regardless of INTP or not. So that's how to answer that.
Well, I mean, if I can give some personal perspective as an INTJ, like the way I get over rejection is kind of like the attitude of, well, if you're too stupid enough to want to be with me, then you're too stupid for me to want to be in a relationship with you. I don't know if that would also apply to ENTJs with TE Hero.
It would.
But that could be one way. And someone just wrote, wow. Uh-oh. I think I'm in trouble with the audience.
All right, next question.
Next question. Let's pretend that never happened. What are the best ways to overcome nonsensical results when grid typing? Like the other day, I was typing someone who was responding super affiliative, super abstract, but answered a very informative style. That gives INFP placement on the grids, but their functions are NIFE.
Well, did you consider cognitive transitions while you were doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Were you making that person
Absolutely.
uncomfortable or getting them outside their comfort zone? Like, you have to take responsibility that when you're trying to observe somebody, that maybe you shouldn't necessarily do it one-on-one, face-to-face, if that's the case, or they're maybe in an extroverted situation when they prefer to be in an introverted situation.
Wow, the audience just complimented me on my arrogance. Come on, I love Jab's arrogance. That's a good paradigm, Jab.
Nice. Nice.
Well, that's how that's how I've gotten through job applications so far.
Next question.
No, hold on. I need to tell a story to the audience. Story time with Jab.
Story time with Jab. So
I applied for a job with a certain company, and I got to top 2. So this was an engineering job. And they informed me that they weren't choosing me like literally 3 days before the job was supposed to start, even though I applied for the job 2 months earlier. And when they rejected me, I replied to them with an email that said, "Hi, I'm sorry to hear the team didn't choose me. Full stop. New line. It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. Regards, Jabba." And that's how I handle rejection.
All right. I'm going to ask the audience
Next
a question. I got to ask the audience. Okay, so in the YouTube chat or in the live stream discussion, if you'd like to see Jab's face as a regular appearance on the live stream from now on, please put an X in the chat. Sorry, had to do it. Next question.
At least the chat's having a good laugh. What type is the most odd man out? So, which type is the odd man out in using interaction styles? ESTP is a structure type, and ISFPs are the only background types with SE. Wouldn't you say this makes them harder to use the interaction styles to type them?
No, not at all. The interaction styles reign supreme anyway, even if they're the odd man out.
The chat is spammed with X's right now. What have you done, Chase?
Yep.
Next question. Which would be the best strategy for me to study as an INFJ? Since we have SE, I thought I should use something like flashcards for the visual aspect, but I don't know if it would be good. I tried brainstorming once, but I don't remember if I liked it or not.
The only way is to write everything down over and over and over and over for an NFJ. Write things down. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Just constant note taking and taking the same notes over and over and over again.
Can I give some advice? I usually like using my TI critic So it's a lot harder to memorize certain facts or lines of information. However, if you use your TI, so if you're an INFJ, you have, is that TI child? It's TI child. So you can use your TI child to rationally, logically go through the logical process of a thing you need to memorize. So, for example, I wouldn't just. So, when I did my chemical engineering degree, so for example, with the thermodynamic cycle, I wouldn't remember, this stage means this, and therefore these things happen. I would think of the logical process. I'd think of like a car piston, and I'd be like, okay, it would go through this, it would go through this compression, it would go through expansion, and it would go through this. And I would just break down the logical process. And the thing is, within the logical process, there's a saying, you'll remember the first, so if you study, you'll remember the first 10, 15 minutes and the last 10 minutes or something. If you practice deducing that logical process within that saying of the first 15 minutes and the last 10 minutes, you'll know the beginning and the end, and you just got to extrapolate in the middle with your logical process. And I find that's the easiest way to memorize something as an SE user. What do you think, Chase?
I mean, truth be told, I didn't hear the last sentence because my mind started wandering.
Oh no, I made him bored. Help me, guys. Not enough bongs and dirty rags.
I know, right? I'm pretty exhausted. It is what it is.
That's all good. I'm pretty sure what I said was correct anyway.
Okay. Fair enough.
I basically just said that I use my TI to remember things because it's a lot easier to remember a logical process which has lots of moving parts which all fit together firmly as opposed to memorizing the parts.
Oh yeah. That is correct because memorization on the part of an NJ is not going to do anything.
Right.
It's just a waste of time. Don't even bother. You need to have totems to remember.
Mm-hmm.
And like notes is a totem.
Right. And the thing is, like, the start and the finish can be a totem, and then you can like build the path in between based on your logical process. I mean, I know for a fact that I remember this in high school. This is actually going to sound incredibly arrogant, but I was redesigning the wheel when I forgot to learn something. So I was like going Isaac Newton on my test and like figuring it out from first principles. It's like, I don't remember this. Hold on, let me use my brain to hypothesize as to what it should be.
Can demon functions show up in BDSM? Marky Mark wants to know. And the answer to that question is yes. Yes, they can. Best example of that is portrayed by Christian Grey in the recent 50 Shades of Grey films, where he utilizes Essie Damon to beat his woman before performing sexual acts upon her. It is rated R, so I recommend you being the appropriate age before watching the movie to find out more.
Yeah. This is not an endorsement of that film. In fact, I think the 50 Shades of Grey franchise is pretty silly.
Yeah, but it is an excellent portrayal of an ENTP-INFJ relationship. And that's the only value out of that movie, other than also showing how tormented ENTPs can act over time.
Right. Well, to me, it just looks like some sort of softcore porn. So that,
I'm sure we could definitely debate that with E.L. James sometimes, but I also think that's not exactly relevant to this discussion. Next question.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, here's Chase keeping me on track instead of me keeping him on track. Please help the ISTJs escape the lazy rut. You told us about it in the videos, but not what to do about it. Thanks.
Have self-discipline. Develop your self-discipline to get you out of your comfort zone. Force yourself to have new experiences you've never had before. Go strand yourself in a country where you don't speak their language for 6 months and then see what happens.
Develop a routine. All right, next question. Knowing the different languages can put someone in a different side of their mind. Is it possible to use a phrase or sentence that has a certain interaction style and temperament, content-wise, to help oneself switch into a different side of their mind?
Technically, yes. Technically, because there's only some things that I would say in certain sides of my mind for sure.
But wouldn't that just But if you're memorizing something and then saying it to try and transition yourself, wouldn't that just be like an SI memory thing? Like,
Yeah, but
hold on, let
it's
me
not
remember
like a
this
button
phrase.
like that. You have to do it. You have to do it with the spirit of it or in the intention in mind. It's not that easy to just like switch it on,
Right.
switch it off like that.
Yeah.
It's not how it works.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I can read a speech by ESFJ, but I'm never going to be an ESFJ. I'm not going to
Exactly.
switch to an ESFJ side of my mind because I don't have one.
Exactly. Jab.
You know.
Let's go back to the silver and platinum questions again, if any. And yeah.
Sure. Let me just quickly. Let me just pin this one so I know where I'm up to. All right. Let's see if we've got any silver.
I think we have another one from platinum.
Yeah, if you have time near the end, my earlier question wasn't quite worded. It's more so the ease of getting through life, such as getting away with stuff, tons of opportunities coming our way, and our abilities to take them, our ability to conquer almost any challenge which comes our way. Sort of like what Chase said about the law of attraction and how high and I, the people consist of two NTJs, an INFJ, and two ENFJ mentors. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Aiden. Yes, for those that don't aware, are not aware of this, the teaching of the law of attraction, though occultic in nature, it actually has some bearings in physics. It also has some bearings in Jungian analytical psychology, where introverted intuition can actually utilize the law of attraction, which there's a physics law attached to the law of attraction. I forget what it is, but and I'm really tired to actually be able to recite it right now. But yeah, like you can utilize it to that end if you're introverted intuition hero. This is why sometimes it appears that introverted intuition hero can just make things happen, and it's like an impossible set of circumstances, and somehow they just like it's as if they willed it into existence basically, and that's kind of how that happens. Or NI hero. So awesome. Let's go into the silver questions. I can't hear anything. Did Jab disappear? He muted himself.
Oh, sorry, I was coughing before and I muted myself so that you wouldn't hear it. All right, sorry. Here we are in the Patreon Q&A. My brother is an ENTP and he wants to know what is the best way to know when he is in the vice of insincerity.
Best way.
How can an ENTP notice if he's in his vice?
How can an ENTP notice if he's in his vice? Sometimes they don't even know. Sometimes their vice is such second nature because all they know is wearing masks their entire lives because no one can actually accept them for who they are, for sure. It really takes someone to just extract it out of them and prove to them that they're actually wrong. ENTPs especially struggle with embellishment consistently because what can be true versus what is actually true in reality is actually the same thing. They're actually the same thing. Because anything is possible to the ENTP, but anything is possible is just as real to them as what reality is to them, even though reality is not as real to them because of introverted sensing. So unless it's occurred in the past, that's how real it is. So when they, so if they're talking in terms of possibilities, the possibilities are real to them, and because the possibilities are real to them, they will state things in response as if those things actually already exist, because to them, from their point of view, they do exist, but to the SE user, they do not exist because they're not in reality. But to the ENTP, they do exist. And then that's when the SE user can basically be like, well, you're lying to me. But the ENTP is like, no, I'm not lying. I'm just aware of what's actually possible, and that's just real to me. The thing is, though, is that when you look at it, in terms of objectivity, it technically is lying. And that's why ENTPs have such a bad rap when it comes to embellishment as a result, right? So based on that, what do? You just have to verify, because sometimes they also have struggle with verifying. So then you just have to keep track of their inconsistencies, call them out when they're inconsistent. And then as a result of being inconsistent, they'll realize, oh, that actually happened in the past. That's even more real now because it's an SI situation, because it happened in the past. Because it happened in the past, they'll realize, oh yeah, I was actually embellishing. And then you can call them out on it, and then they'll change their behavior, right? This is again, the vice of insincerity, right? But that's how you keep them in the virtue of sincerity from an external component. They can, over time, develop self-discipline and develop habits to prevent themselves from reaching embellishment, which is very typical, or can happen. But how much damage has to be done up until they finally reach that point, right? And that's just kind of how it is. Oftentimes, though, because people just assume they're up to no good anyway to begin with, regardless of what they're embellishing or not, the ENTP's like, well, just screw it. I'll just wear a mask anyway. No one understands, so why bother? Why bother? Why bother? Why bother? Right? So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's a catch-22. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Right?
Right.
So
Well, I mean, within that statement itself, I can hear a little bit of if I'm going to do the time, I might as well do the crime with
that's
regards
right.
to wearing
If
a
I'm going to
mask.
do the time, I may as well do the crime. Exactly. So we're so used to doing the time. So
Mhm.
it's like, well, screw it. Why bother? Why bother having that moral path? It's not like morals have done me any good, done any
Mhm.
ENTP good.
Wow. All right, let's go on to the next question. I believe our cognitive functions are indirectly a sign of a creator, not necessarily the creator, but
Chase
our
didn't
creator.
answer my super chat. I'm a salty boy. Really. What did
What super
Bartos
chat?
add?
Oh, oh, people seem to mistype themselves as INTPs a lot. Why is this, and why are the telltale signs? What are the telltale signs of a mistype? Didn't we answer that?
No, we didn't.
Oh, okay.
Telltale signs of a mistype is that they read their type profile and they're like, that's not me. That would be the first point. Um,
Right.
yeah, it just depends on how they react. Also,
Well,
people wanted stated, oh, hey, we need to have tips on how to develop self discipline. Basically, you just have to force yourself to do things you don't want to do. Force yourself to do things that you're not in the mood to do. Force yourself to do things you've never done before. Basically, that's developing self discipline. Developing habits, breaking bad habits, developing new habits is another direction. A good way to develop self discipline quickly is through martial arts as an SI user. And because tangential, let's go back to that previous question that you were about to answer, Jab. By all means, please give your point.
um, hold on. Oh, I wasn't answering the question. I was
The
asking
super
the
chat.
question.
Bartos' super
Oh,
chat.
all right. Apparently, I'm in another world today. I just bragged about. I think bragging about how I smacked down that job thing has made me a little bit high. So people seem to mistype themselves as INTPs a lot. Why is this, and what are the telltales
Well,
signs of a
another
mistake?
reason for it is because they're typing themselves with the letter dichotomies instead of using the type grid.
Right. And the thing is, on that last letter, the MBTI test is terrible because there
Yeah.
is a huge, like Donald Trump style, huge. There's a huge. There's a huge difference
Nice.
between how the J versus P manifests amongst the different types, especially when you go from sensor to intuitive.
Exactly.
Like, open up the type grid, have a look at it, and then look at J versus P across all the types, and you will see how the cognitive functions differ. And from a cognitive function point of view, you will be like, how the hell does this J versus P work? You will actually think that it's broken.
Well,
I mean, the only types you can really type off the letter dichotomy are maybe the I versus E and maybe N versus S.
yeah. Bag of Box asked a really good question, though. Half asleep Chase is more alert than woke Jab.
What?
But I'm
Half
an
asleep.
ambivert, Matty Bojangles says. Nice one, bro. Nice.
Congratulations, you have some subconscious utilization or some.
Bartos, always call us out if we miss a super chat. It's all good, man. We got you.
Yeah, I mean, you spent $5. Like at the very least, we can spend 5 seconds on your question.
I know,
Oh,
right? Wow.
I didn't mean to be ungrateful. Thank you,
Wow.
champ, for your donation.
Yeah, thank
Has
you.
Jab been drinking? No, I am in my subconscious, not my unconscious. So maybe I've been snorting something, but
Nice. All right. We're going to be ending the stream a little bit early tonight, so let's get into the final stretch. Is there any more silver questions to go through?
Let's get through the silver questions, ask some YouTube, and then we'll
Yeah,
tie
that's
it
what
up
we're
there
going to do.
because I
Yeah.
think we actually got through quite a few
No
questions
more
today.
no more super chats tonight, please.
That sounds like an incredibly stupid thing to say.
I know, right?
All right. Well, if you want a super chat, I'll answer the question, and Chase can be in the background, and Chase can forward me the money.
That's true.
Where were we up to? I was looking at the Patreon questions, right?
Sorry, guys. It's just really late for me. It's just really late. So.
Yeah, my bad. I believe our cognitive functions are indirectly a sign of a creator, not necessarily the creator, but a creator. That being actually going backwards with regards to what Chase said about the type description, I remembered what I was about to say. With regards to the type descriptions, we might have something like that coming out soon.
It is coming out soon.
Stay
yes.
tuned. Stay tuned. We've got lots of stuff in the works for y'all. But yeah, going back to this question, I've interrupted it like 3 times now. I believe our cognitive functions are indirectly the sign of a creator, not necessarily the creator, but our creator. That being said, why are cognitive functions all in an extroverted, introverted, extroverted, introverted, or introverted, extroverted, introverted, extroverted order? What makes us so sure there aren't people who are I, or I? Sorry for being a pain in the ass, but I find this type of question to be the most interesting.
It's a good question. I maintain that because of cognitive functions being in a certain order amongst the 16 types, and they're just always in that order, that is evidence of intelligent design instead of evolution, because macroevolution is based on chaos theory. Chaos theory basically says that, hey, macroevolution, not microevolution. I maintain microevolution is true, but macroevolution I cannot maintain is true, because if that was true, then our psyches would be chaotic. And they're just not. It's only through external factors outside of our control that we have chaotic personalities, but those are only in very, very rare instances, and it's usually due to mental illness or brain damage of some kind, or congenital type of or being born with issues and whatnot. So as a result, logically speaking, because chaos theory would say that our brains or our minds or our psyches would be developing chaotically over time, they're just not. They're always in a specific order every single time. As a result of there being order in the presence of chaos in that regard, I cannot help but maintain that macroevolution is not true. So if it's not true, then logically speaking, that means intelligent design would actually have to be true. Whether or not you agree with me or not, that's your problem, not mine. So take that with many grains of salt. So outside of that, I do agree with this person's premise. However, in terms of like trying to find someone who might be like 2 extroverted functions or 2 introverted functions at the top of their stack, there's just no evidence for it. And even Carl Jung went to great lengths to try to prove that was the case, and he failed. He actually has it written in one of his books. I don't remember which book it was specifically. He also has like some lab work that he wrote that was also peer reviewed as well and published in a journal that, to my knowledge, that actually talked about that when it came to something about cognitive senses. I don't remember which one it was. I just remember like thumbing through it one day, but I don't remember. Or that might have been his lab partner. I don't remember. That was years ago. So yeah, like they always follow this consistent system every single time, and there isn't really nothing outside of that. I mean, you could say, well, sometimes the child function is really overdeveloped, and that's usually because the parent function is not developed enough, basically, because the child is running rampant because there's no disciplinarian from the mature parent to be able to handle that. Mm-hmm. So again, like it follows a system, right? So also the turbulent versus assertive stuff, I'm actually going to be debunking that in a very future lecture, just so you guys know. So don't hold on to those turbulent and assertive labels for too long, because they'll be in the dumpster very soon.
It'd actually be really interesting if we actually developed. Oh, let's not. I'll talk to you about that privately. That's something I probably shouldn't say on stream.
All right, fair enough.
With regard, we actually got a super chat for £10. £10 is a lot of money. We got to read it, Chase.
All right.
How can an INTP better deal with self-doubt? An INTP can better deal with self-doubt by realizing the fact that, you've got TI hero and you're freaking brilliant.
Uh, yeah, that's one way. Again, develop self-discipline. No, here's how you deal with self-doubt, mostly as an INTP. Help people. Literally go out of your way to help and assist other people. Be supportive. That's all you have to do is help people, because the
Right.
more you help people as an INTP, the smarter you get. It's not about like, oh, studying and then getting a job. That's all for yourself. But if you're actually actively helping other people and part of something and part of a group, part of a cause, or actually actively helping people, and you know your support, that without your support they're probably going to fail in that situation, you're going to become smarter and smarter, more and more capable and better. And because of that, you realize that you won't have to be doubting yourself anymore, because you could see the results of this person appreciating you for what you're doing for them. That's how you do it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, if I were to say it, I would say, hey, I'm an INTJ here, and I've got TE parent, which is incredibly powerful and responsible, and it tells me that you have TI hero and that you're absolutely brilliant. And if you stick to logical processes,
Jared
you're
Vaughn
going
is
to kick
also
ass.
correct. A physical exercise definitely helps an INTP reduce self doubt. Absolutely.
Right, right,
So
right.
thank you for pointing that out.
How can I develop my subconscious as an INTJ? Find yourself your own ENTP who's starting his own YouTube channel and be his co-host. That's my advice to you, sir.
Fantastic. Next question.
Best way to study for ESFP. I'm cheap, by the way. Sorry. Oh, he donated it anyway. What's the
Uh,
best way to study for an ESFP?
Read a lot of books, as many books as you possibly can. Do not read fiction, read nonfiction, and try to keep it within the same subject. And read multiple authors for the same subject. Do not just pick one author per subject. You have to see multiple authors. Now, how do you optimize that? Pick the most well-known book, the most current and up-to-date book for a particular subject, and then you look at their bibliography and read every book in the bibliography. That's how you do it for TE Child. That's the best way to study for an ESFP, hands down, to get the best success.
Wow. That's actually a really interesting point of view. Like, go to the bibliography and read those books.
Yep.
I mean, another jab story time. Whenever I wanted to cheat for sources when I was doing a research project, well, this is more for high school. I couldn't really get away with it at university. But you know how you're not allowed to reference Wikipedia? There's
Yep.
nothing stopping you from going to Wikipedia, scrolling down to the references, and then going to all the references and
Amen.
referencing. There's nothing
Oh,
stopping
what
you.
a great strategy. What a great strategy, Jeb.
There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Here's your Jabba cheat code for life. Well, actually, I could get away with it at university because usually the sources, well, not all the sources were good, but the good sources you could absolutely roll with. And you could reference them and da 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 da. And perfect. All right. What does a typical immature ENTJ look like? Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Typical immature ENTJ. Someone who, when they have relationships with women, they just trade up first opportunity they get. That's a typical ENTJ male immaturity behavior. Another one is being overly impulsive, constantly putting shared experiences and being really forgetful. Here's another one: not taking the time to take notes. That's a big one, because ENTJs wonder why they're getting fired from jobs or from anything, and it's because they didn't actually take the time to take any notes about anything that they learned during their training, or at least
Right.
are keeping track of what people are telling them. Because if they don't keep track of what people are telling them, they're not going to be productive, and then they're going to find themselves fired. If they're not using memory tools to create totems for themselves, they are immature. So don't do that, ENTJs. Wake up. You need to seriously make sure you have Evernote, or as someone important to me recently said, Snagit, or as another one is a program called MindNode. It's an Apple product. I recommend it. It's an amazing mind mapping tool. I design everything. Even my entire company marketing plan is based on mind maps in MindNode, or any company plan thereof. It shows you the entire structure and how data flows through. Why would you not want a memory tool like that? Create yourself a memory totem, folks. That's how you do it, ENTJs. But if you're too lazy to do that, you're not going to be successful, and you are immature, and no one's going to want to work with you or think highly of you, and your reputation is just going to go down in the dumpster where you belong. Don't do that. Write everything down. It's what you have to do. It's what NTJs have to do to survive, especially you ENTJs, because you're super mega forgetful. So I think I hit that one out of the park, Jab. What do you think?
Right. Christian just donated again, and he said study for a test, he means. So how can an ESFP study for a test?
Oh, ESFP study for a test. Write everything down and the same notes over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Right. So just repetition.
Repetition of note taking, right. Even if it's the same notes.
Create those neural pathways by repetition. I would also say, as an ESFP, you've got that strong SE. If it's something you can do practical work on, I think you would benefit from that greatly. So, I don't know, if you're studying how to build cars, I'd say, get your hands dirty and work on a car.
Okay.
If you're studying.
So, totem. What is a totem? A totem.
Right, I just said get a totem.
yeah. A totem is like a sticky note with notes on it. That's a totem. A journal. That's a totem. A notebook. That's a totem. A notepad file. That's a totem.
It doesn't necessarily need to be a notepad. I could, like, for example, I'm holding my car keys right now, and
an SI user is a totem.
I could remember a time where
any physical object is a totem.
Yeah, exactly. So
look
for example,
up psychometry.
I got my car keys in my hand right now, and I remember driving down the highway at 110 kilometers an hour, to a town.
Real men go 130. That's
and I can remember a very enjoyable circumstance in my life where I was driving 110 down the highway to get to a certain location, but I'm not going to go into much detail because I don't feel like sharing that right now. And that's my totem as an SI demon.
Oh, you were driving 65 miles an hour. Oh no, God help us.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
That's like the highest speed limit that you could possibly get in California. Like, that's like not even a thing.
Well, I mean, the highest speed you can drive in here.
Well, wallaby driving, not exactly the best. So, next.
Next. INFP without long-term goals or motivation, how to become the so-called brilliant academic. Read.
Force yourself to read topics that you're interested in. And if you're too lazy to do that, find someone like me where I'll just shame you in front of your family until you're actually motivated to do anything.
I'm literally imagining Chase with some INFP person who's like, this INFP is such a loser. He needs to do this, and that.
And doing it in front of all of his friends and family in a very public manner. And it's recorded so I could share it with people.
And then he puts it on his YouTube channel. Hey,
Amen.
Everyone, see this INFP over here? I told them if they didn't do this, and that would happen. And then it happened, and I told them, I told you so. And it's going to happen again if you don't do it. And then it happened again. Oh, my God, they're so bad. Why won't they change their ways? Everyone laugh at them.
Nice. Okay, so what that means, INFPs, if you get stuck in your rut, get ready, because somebody close to you in your life, especially an NFJ, they're going to publicly shame you in order to motivate you. So if you don't want to be shamed, I recommend you guys develop some self-discipline, break your bad habits, develop new ones, and have a healthy routine, and you'll be way better off.
All right. Another super chat question. What do you think about Stoicism and its applications to everyday life?
Stoicism and its application to everyday life could be applied to SI users. Do I recommend SE users be Stoics? Hell no. Nope. Not at all.
Hell no.
Nope. And specifically SI heroes and SI child of those types. So ISTJs, ISFJs, INTPs, and INFPs benefit the most from Stoicism, but everybody else not so much. SI parents could possibly make that argument, but not really. Otherwise, I'd avoid Stoicism outside of those types, quite frankly.
Boom. All right, we've got one more Patreon question, maybe a couple of YouTube, and then we can wrap it up. Best study method for ESTP. I'm trying to memorize the type grid.
Repeated use. Really, just repeated use. Just to understand the concept best, you need to achieve a level of mastery, which is explained in Robert Greene's book titled Mastery. Right. And it's extremely useful to STPs and NFJs specifically. It really comes down to the amount of hours put into using it. As Tony Robbins said, people are rewarded in public for what they have practiced for years in private. I am no exception. I've been practicing this for 10 years.
Perfect. Well, I think that's all the Patreon questions. So
All
let
right,
us
let's
do
do a
some
few
more
moments. Let's do
YouTube.
a few moments of YouTube questions. All right, YouTube questions. Go. What do you got?
Go. We're gonna wait for like the 4 second delay.
Gotta love that delay.
Jab is
Yep.
Jab is funny
Oh,
today.
look. No question, but here's some cash for you guys. I can't explain how helpful this channel has been for me. Thank you, Chris Varga, for your donation. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you, champ. We really appreciate the £10. Love you long time.
Love you long time. Chase is an
Yeah.
INTJ. I don't know why I would trust an ENTP who has FI Trickster. Help to get over it. Just call them out on their inconsistency, and if they actually change, because they're very moldable. ENTPs and ENFPs are very moldable. They're moldable like water. They take the shape that they need to take of. And just as long as you don't give up on them and continue to shape them, eventually they will be molded in such a way where you'll be fine. But you have to have the willpower to actually be there and help mold them and shape them in that way. If you don't, then I suggest you move on as quickly as possible. It really just depends on what you're willing to deal with in order to get your goal realized. Otherwise, again, just move on. Eventually, the pain of life will catch up to them, and they'll be shaped accordingly by the pain of life. Or if you're willing to be that person for them, you can shape them accordingly from there. But again, that's just how much effort you want to put in. You want to put into it for the ENTP. It really comes down to effort, because if you don't, life eventually will do it in total. But if you do it, then there's a chance that it could fast track them to that better behavior. But don't forget, like, you also have to maintain that you yourself are going to be jumping to the wrong conclusions anyway, and you have to make sure that you're not accusing them of things that they didn't do. Because if you do that to them, there's a chance that they'll never forgive you, and they'll remember those accusations indefinitely, and 10 years later bring it up and throw it in your face at that time. And if you're really prepared for that, well, you got to make that decision. So it goes both ways.
Right. Can INFPs read minds? Yes, if you're an ENFJ.
INFPs can read minds in certain cases. It's only if their TE inferior is very well developed, and they have to not be insecure about it, and they also have to be willing to speak up.
Book recommendations for INTP development.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Depends on if you're female or male, but No More Mr. Nice Guy is a good go-to.
Yeah, also Codependent No More. Also, that book that talks about avoidant versus anxious versus secure attachment styles. It's very useful, especially for INTPs who are typically avoidant attachment style.
INTJ, immature versus mature. All right, I'll give you a few. Immature is procrastinating a lot, and I would say mature would be, if they've got a good subconscious develop, that would be a good example of mature. A good example of mature is consistency. A good example of immature would be being stagnant. Just trying to think.
Oh no.
What do you think? Sorry?
What's the question?
Mature. What are some examples of mature versus immature INTJs? I would say
immature INTJs are just so stuck in their mood, and then and also the ones that are really far out to procrastinate instead of being responsible with their productivity levels in that regard. Jumping to conclusions about other people's intentions, feeling their paranoia is justified when it's not, and then making decisions based on that justification when it's not, which leads to alienating other people. Also, thinking they're performing well when they're not, and then behaving pridefully as a result of that top performance when they're not.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. They have that INJ cockiness to them when they do that, and the cockiness is not even remotely like justified. Again, that's an INTJ immature point of view, and then the mature ones are the complete opposite of those. So
Right. Well, I would say my cockiness is a little bit justified. I wouldn't say that's a sign of my immaturity.
yeah, fair enough. You did write a
Oh,
very viral article recently, so thank you for that, Jab.
you're welcome. And don't forget my cocky answer to that company that rejected me. I was like, it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. We should turn that into a t-shirt. Although I kind of feel like that might be never mind. Let's not go there.
Let's not.
Uh can you explain why SE is not the mode for stoicism? What?
Because Stoicism implies self discipline, and SC is not about self discipline. Also, which types are more sexual, sensors or intuitives? Intuitives are, hands down, way more sexual than sensors. Sensors statistically have less sex than intuitives do.
Does this come down to like the phenomena of it's something that's more forbidden to them? So
I remember an ESTP on that other Discord server that we're on saying, "Oh, I'm good if I just get it once a week," and I'm like, "Yeah, dude, whatever. Okay, that's nice. I'm good if I get it once a
what?
day." So
Once a week?
yeah, once a week. I know, right? Two intuitives here saying like that's crap. No, every day.
What?
Like literally, it has to be every
Like
day.
once a week would be grounds for divorce for me.
Wow. Thanks, Jab. That really hurt. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
Do
Like
TE
I would
users put
seriously.
more weight into what the experts say? Yes, they do. Thank you for asking that question. Thank you so much for asking that question. Yes, they do. Does this mean a chain of command? What leads to what? I have no idea what that means. All right. What do you mean I'm more sexual than you, Chase? Hands down. I need it every day, at least twice a day. Okay. Thank you very much for saying that. That's kind of awkward, but okay.
Sriram Ravikuma asks, "How is it that I remember every concept I've learned, even though I'm an INTJ? Are they logical processes? Are they logical concepts? Because I remember logical concepts, even though I have SI demon, but I could not remember the 250 plus bones in the body. But I could remember the thermodynamic cycles. I could remember the differences between them. I've forgotten them now. Please don't ask me. But when it came down to it, like literally the lecturer would teach it, and I knew it. Like I didn't have to go and study it. Um, with regards to highly complicated processes like mass transfer and using dimensionless numbers to model the flow of the movement of concentration, you know, I would remember that stuff.
How can an ENTP deal
Why?
with procrastination? They need to be devoted to their work. It's all about devotion. It's not about willpower, what they want to do. It's about being devoted because they maintain it as their duty to do the work that they're doing. Because if they do not, they are harming other people in the process. That is how an ENTP avoids procrastination. Is INTJ the best type? According to who? Question mark. According to who? Yeah. Okay. How do I convince an obstinate, hard-headed ENTP that they are wrong? Don't give up and provide additional reference points and data, and then again, once it hits their SI, if it's in NE land, they're not really going to go with it. But once it hits their SI and it's in the past, then they have no choice but to confront that, and then they realize that you're correct, and then they will back down immediately and change their ways and hopefully develop new habits.
Aha. Okay, so this is actually a question I think we should answer. Somebody asks, hold on, let me find it. Someone just sent another question.
Two more questions. Two more questions. I got time for two more.
All right, let me just find where it was. So this person says, I'm an INTP/J, 50% P, 50% J. How to study the most efficiently? Okay, so we can't tell you how to study the most efficiently because you are. So with 50% P, 50% J, here's an example of the failure of the MBTI test. You're not an INTP and INTJ at the same time. I can tell you that. You're not halfway between the two. It's just a failure of the test. And I think the best thing you could do right now is use the type grid to determine which one you are, if you are of those two. Because I've seen the I've seen the MBTI tests fail so many times. So my recommendations to you, sir, go to csjoseph.life, put your email in, get a copy of the type grid, and use the type grid to type yourself. And determine whether you're an INTJ or an INTP. I guess we've got one more question now.
There's a lot of questions. Pick one.
Oh, let's see. Rubs hands furiously. I don't know if you can hear that.
Yes, we can.
Do people put too much weight on their types? Yes.
Yes.
I would say that.
How can I tell an
And I would
ISTP person he is stubborn? Watch my lecture, How to Social Engineer ISTPs for the answer.
Mhm.
Season 21, episode, I think it's 11. 12.
Does he do...
Best martial art for ESTP, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Muay Thai.
Why does your
Maybe even
definition of
judo.
the superego... Why does it... Here's a good one. Why does your definition of the superego differ from Freud's definition of the superego, which acts like an inner parent that hands out rewards and punishments to the psyche?
Because the superego, the demon, it can be very rewarding if you indulge yourself in it, or when it turns into angelic mode, and then you can utilize its angelic properties. So it is absolutely rewarding. But it could also punish you, because if you end up making that Faustian deal with the devil, it will absolutely destroy your life. And having been made those Faustian deals with the devil through my superego when I was 18 years old, all those bad decisions that I made when I was 18 years old, I'm still paying for them to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And the price will be paid. And that's just how it is. The superego, my definition of superego, means it is the superfluous ego, meaning that it is extra or not necessary to have, but it is there. And it becomes necessary to have when it becomes the angelic ego, which it can happen only through basically enlightenment. And that only happens after developing your subconscious and your unconscious simultaneously to full maturity and maturation, therefore allowing you to healthily access your superego and you begin turning it into an angelic form instead of the demonic form that it is.
All right.
Also, Muriel, I don't think you're sorry. And yes, I will go to bed. So otherwise, thank you, folks. Have a good night. We will not have a Q&A session this coming Sunday because I am busy moving, but we will have it the following weekend. So thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you for the super chats and your continued support. We really appreciate it. And anything else, Chad, before we go?
Yeah, I mean, I might show up Sunday. I mean, this is a work in progress that I've just pulled out of my butt, but I might show up
He's
on
very good at that.
Discord. Yeah, I'm very good at, putting things in or removing them from my butt. I tell you that much.
All right. Well, we're gonna go while you go demonstrate that for us without us looking or hearing. So.
Right. What I was gonna say is, I was thinking maybe I could do like a Jabber Q&A just on Discord, not on YouTube.
Yeah, maybe
get
potentially.
Some questions and answers done.
$2
like
from Morgan Flies. Have a good night. Yes, thank you, the Morgan Flies. Much appreciated. Have a good night, folks.
Thank you, champ. Good night, everyone. Sweet dreams. Give me more money because I'm coin operated. And
Thanks.
I'll talk to you later.